do this right now? And can you take us through maybe when this started to come together, whether it was a day ago, a couple days ago?
Well, I mean, as you know, there's a Major League Baseball rules about interview process, and at the time with an interim, I just felt that, first of all, for quite a while, I have felt that Rob is the right person, but I also understand the guidelines. But I thought we had reached a point at this time that I could go to the commissioner's office and ask them that I don't know what else you would have to do from a managerial perspective to earn a contract extension. And my mind was totally made up to be in a position that Rob's the right person for the job. So it just so happened, even though it's in my mind, you still want to do it in a proper fashion. And the way it turned out in the playoffs here, with us winning on Saturday, it gave me a little bit of time, because I think that it's still hanging over your head. And as an organization, are they going to bring them back? Are they not going to bring them back, from a player perspective, from a coaching staff perspective? And I think it's good to solidify that if you can. So the timing worked out well in that situation. So when we got in, I had asked Topper if he could come to my room yesterday, and we really talked about it yesterday for the first time. But of course, I discussed it with other people in the baseball operations, and also talked to John Middleton to let him know what was taking place.
Marcus?
Dave, when in your mind had Rob convinced you that he was the right guy for this job, not vis-a-vis, getting permission, but just, you came to the decision in your mind that, let me see what everybody else thinks, let me see what John thinks. And Rob, was there ever any question? I mean, you could have been a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you have to say yes. Was there any question that, you would maybe hold out?
You want to answer first?
There you go first.
No question at all. This is the only place I'd want to be moving forward. And I really haven't thought about it, because I got so many other things I need to really think about and focus on. So it really wasn't on my mind until yesterday, when Dave asked me to go to his room after we dropped our bags off. And then I started thinking about it, and I thought, maybe this is what it's about. But no, I wouldn't have held out or wanted to go anyplace else. This is a really good ball club, what we got now, and I see even better things in the future because of our player development department and our scouting department. So I think it's just kind of a perfect spot.
And before you answer, Dave, how often does he call you to his hotel room?
That's the first time.
I'm sorry, Dave, when in your heart of hearts did you know Rob was the guy and you were going to start advocating for him?
Well, all along I have been very impressed with the job that he's done. But when you have information, so for me, I knew we couldn't do anything until the end of the season. I mean, so you're continually gathering information, and I've been continually impressed on how he's handled everything throughout the year. And so the mind has really been leaning that way for an extended period, but like everything else, you continue to take information in all the time. So it's really been a lengthy period where I have felt that way. I mean, you're always in a position, you just never can tell what happens for a certain individual in any circumstances of life. So you continue to gather information. But really, I think from all of our perspective, you keep saying, well, what else do you need to do? And I think a couple things. One is, not only with my perspective, but from a team perspective and the respect that the players and staff have for Topper. I think you could see that all along. The communication aspect, willing to handle issues as they've come up, open-mindedness to different ideas that are presented to him, being new in that job, because there's a lot of different things. So you had all of that, those factors that were involved. So it's really been for quite a while. But again, always knowing that I really couldn't tackle this because of baseball rules. So you take that in, and then, I mean, when I called the commissioner and just to make sure and get his approval, it was really a matter of, well, what else would you need to do? And like Rob said, he says, hey, I'm not in for sham interviews. I'm for promoting minorities, and I agree with that totally, and giving them the opportunities. But it's also a situation where it's tough to top what he has done.
Jim?
Hey, Dave, did the 2-year term, was that designed to coincide with the rest of your term? as GM, as president of baseball ops?
Well, that was part of it. To me, it just seemed like a likely good term based upon it. But yeah, I do think there's a coincidence coinciding with my situation. Sure makes sense.
Scott.
Dave and Sam. There's a ton of reasons, obviously, why you guys were able to turn it around from 22 and 29. But, you're the first team since '09, I believe, to change the manager in season and make the playoffs. So from where you guys sit, what was it about Rob and how much of I know you can't quantify it, but how much of an impact was a new voice and a new manager?
Well, we've said all along, right off the bat, we jumped and started off quickly. So you could tell there was an immediate impact right off the bat. And for me to sit back and tell anybody that I expected us to win our first 8 games with him as our manager, I would be lying to you. You're hoping for an impact, but it's like you're not expecting that necessarily right off the bat. But I just think that just the overall change of atmosphere and communication and just the way the clubhouse felt when you're around, and it's not being negative towards past, but just was different. And you could just tell we were playing with a relaxed but focused approach. And I think everybody thought it was like, hey, this is great. Now, I can't tell you speak for the players, but I will tell you during the season, I've had players come up to me and say, geez, we just love him. He just has done a great job, and don't forget how good a job that he has done. So that'll be mine. Sam, anything you want to add?
No, I think you nailed it. You talked about Thomson's high level of communication and open-mindedness, and something that I've been familiar with for the entirety of my tenure with the Phillies. And Thomson's been prior to his term as the interim manager has been the real quarterback of that coach's room, and I think that's just continued on a really high level since taking on the manager role, and he's just got a calm and steadiness about him that I think has just been incredibly helpful in that clubhouse as we've sort of navigated some adversity and some ups and downs and the stress of trying to break that playoff drought. And I think Thompson's been incredible in that way, in addition to just being a really great communicator. And I think what's special about it is it's with everybody. It's with future Hall of Famers, and it's with guys who are on the bubble to be on a roster on any given day. And I think that's a really tremendous quality that Thompson does a really great job of.
Todd, and then Alex.
I got a question for Dave, and then a question for Rob. I'll start with Dave. It seems like today in baseball, there's a certain type of manager that's being hired, and I'm wondering, at any point throughout the year, did you think about or occur to you, or even now, of how maybe baseball kind of missed the boat on a guy like Rob, and he probably would have never gotten this opportunity, or maybe even another managerial interview again, if he had not made the move to replace Joe in June?
No, I really didn't think about that part of it. I think I thought more about a couple things. One is, you have a good baseball person. No, I'm very knowledgeable, very smart about the game. On top of it, and anybody you talk to will say that, great communicator. So why didn't the opportunity come up before? I can't answer that. I've asked a couple people that question, and they seem to scratch their head, but I wasn't around them at that point, so I couldn't say that. And then I do think, though, at the point that if this opportunity didn't come, then I don't know if he would have had a chance, because a lot of times you're in a position where he's been in the game such a long time, very well respected, I think, anywhere you turn. But it's also a situation where sometimes you get branded in a certain way that you're a number 2 guy. And I was talking to somebody the other day that, I was a younger guy, an assistant general manager. It was a long time ago. I can barely remember it, probably before most people were born in here. But it's a situation where I remember you played a different role, right? My job was not to worry about becoming the general manager. My job was to support the general manager. I wasn't worried about becoming him. I would help him however I could, And I was a lot younger, and finally, and an opportunity came to me in an unusual time period. And I think that happens to people. But I will also say you never know until somebody gets in that job, when they're a number 2 person, how they'll respond until they are as a number 1. You just don't know that, right? I mean, you think, but you see hirings all the time where somebody comes up and is an outstanding coordinator in any sport, and then you put them in that role, and it's not quite the same. That was one of the things that came here. He was not overmatched whatsoever. I mean, he stepped in right away, dealt with everything, dealt with issues, felt very comfortable in communication in that regard. So that quickly became a back thought, because it really was not would not be an accurate assessment about him.
And then, Rob, we know you don't like attention. You've said as much. Reese said, you kind of expressed maybe, oh, gosh, I hope I'm not a distraction. So I'm wondering, as your dream kind of came true today, how uncomfortable are you sitting up there talking about this right now before Game 1?
Completely. I wish we'd get to baseball, really, to tell you the truth. But no, I know we got to deal with it, but I really want the spotlight on the players and the series and baseball is what I want to get to.
And I want to just add that yesterday when I talked to him, and he, of course, didn't know what was going on, I guess he thought about it after I mentioned it. The one thing, when I approached him, he said, well, maybe I'd rather prefer to wait till all this is over, because I don't want to be a distraction for anything going on. And I said, well, in my mind, this would not be a distraction. It would be positively regarded by our players. Because one thing we always try to do is keep distractions away from them, and anything we possibly do during this time period. And I thought it would be just the opposite, although I know he's uncomfortable up here talking. But I think once we get past this, that the focus will be totally on what we need it to be, which is trying to win ball games.
Alex?
Hey, Rob. What does it mean to you to have the interim tag removed from this position? Does it provide relief? Does it impact day-to-day?
No, I don't think it impacts anything today. I'm just very humbled, really, and feel fortunate that John Middleton and Dave and Sam have the confidence in me to run this ball club for the next couple of years. And like I said before, it's a really good ball club now, and it's only going to get better. And for them to have that confidence in me is really humbling.
Was it something that was on your mind over the past few weeks as we get close to the end of this?
No, not really. I was just focused on, one, helping the ball club get into the playoffs, and then we get in the playoffs, and it's a sprint, and we're doing all this work, working on St. Louis and now Atlanta, and that's really all I'm focused on. I'm still focused on that.
Matt?
Am I allowed to ask you a baseball question?
Yes, please.
Will your roster be the same for this series as last?
Well, we're gonna tackle that in the morning, and it'll be out 10 o'clock, I think, when it's coming out.
Suarez, Wheeler, Nola?
Yes, I can say that, yeah.
Okay.
So they'll be on the roster.
Good to know.
Jim?
Will you go with your left-handed lineup tomorrow against Fried?
Possibly, yes.
Is it the one we saw against Quintana?
Possibly. It's going to be close.
Okay. What do you think you might do in center field?
I haven't talked to the players yet, so I can't reveal that.
Marcus down in front, and then to Jesse.
Dave, over the past few years, the more significant players in your clubhouse have been very unashamed and vocal about what they want to have happen, whether it's with the roster or otherwise. Did you talk to guys, the $750 million worth of marquee players that you have, about retaining Rob, either directly or indirectly, sort of taking the temperature?
No, I never asked anybody that question directly. I did have a few of the guys from the team during the year just saying, I hope you know how important he is to us. And in a situation like that, I mean, not that I don't mind feedback at all, but ultimately you're going to make the decision. But I think the players' reactions and way they handle themselves tell you as much about it than even asking them the question directly. But I didn't ask the question directly to anybody, but some of them did come up to me and say, hey, this guy's great, tremendous, we need to keep him, that type of thing.
Can you tell us one or two who might have done that?
I'd prefer not to, because when they had it to me, they do it confidentially.
Right. And Rob, I mean, to Alex's point, you're 59 years old, you've been doing this forever, and this is your first contract. Do you feel validated?
I feel awfully good about it. I really do, and I'm very honored, like I said. I really do. It's been in the back of my mind for a lot of years, but the last 3, 4, 5 years, I really have never thought about it. And then it just happens, so it's funny how life is sometimes.
Jesse.
Dave, back to the timing of it. Obviously, you could have done it whenever the season ended. I'm curious, in a different world, you might think, well, we need to judge him in the playoffs. But is this kind of highlight the idea that you judge a manager from April, or in this case, June to September, much more than best of 3, best of 5, best of 7?
Well, I mean, first of all, when we got done with the season, we didn't have much downtime. In fact, we had none. We had one day of workout. We flew from Houston, and we didn't even know we were going until the day before. So there really wasn't much. I wouldn't want to tackle something like of this magnitude in a rushed fashion.
Well, I meant after you're done with the postseason.
Sure.
You could have done it.
Yes, we could have, but I thought it was with the time period here, I didn't feel rushed, thought that we had enough time to deal with it. And my mind was already made up at this point, so if you can get something done to stabilize the organization, all the much better. So I think that's one now. We work from here. We know who our manager is. We go forward in that regard, and you try to settle things in your organization as you go forward, and I think this is a huge question mark that's answered if it was a question mark for people. So that's the reason behind it.
Down here in the front on the right.
Rob, you talked a lot about believing in the direction of the club regarding scouting and player development. What kind of progress have you seen in the last 5 years, and even this year, really?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but we've had a number of players come up from AAA, from Lehigh Valley, and immediately produced, and immediately just put so much energy into the club to help us win games when we had a bunch of injuries, frankly. And the development of the pitching prospects that are coming and the position players that are coming. I just think the organization is has been built from the ground up, and we have good veteran players, and we've got all this youth coming. I just see good times ahead. I really do.
We'll take one last one on the right.
Hi, Rob. Ranger said earlier that one of his favorite things about you was that you let guys be themselves. In regards to Bohm's season, how important do you think that sentiment was for him, and what does it look like to let Alec be himself?
I think, everybody's an individual, and you got to let them be themselves to a certain degree, and I think you let them only go so far. That you've got to have a certain amount of discipline in your clubhouse and when you're playing the game. But I think a lot of Alex's success has come also from Bobby Dickerson and Kevin Long, and how they've helped him get through some tough times and keep his confidence and keep him moving forward. It's certainly not me. It's a whole bunch of people that have helped him develop and help him get better so he can be a consistent player.
Okay, thank you all for coming in. Congratulations to Rob, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.